good evening. This is Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kenyuk. And this week we have, is it Chris? Maddie's stepfather, right? Producing for us in the booth. So we'll have to flip Maddie some crap this week. I don't know what she's doing. Is messing around, I guess.
Her contract specifically states she doesn't work in the rain.
Okay, I think that's it.
It's a no rain clause.
She melts. I think that's what she was telling me. Is she gets out in that rain and she's so sweet she melts. Well, speaking of rain, we're getting a lot of this this week.
A little bit.
It's off and on in the forecast for the next several days. If you would like to join our little show here with your questions or your comments, be sure and call toll-free 855-244-0077, and that's 244-0077 if you're in the local Des Moines area. So anything interesting this week that...
Too much interesting. They're trying to start a war in Syria based on false pretenses, as always. They're trying to ramp up the whole Russian thing. Vladimir Putin was on TV at a youth group today saying, basically, don't mess with Russia or else we're going to nuke you. Henry Kissinger popping up in the Wall Street Journal calling for a assembly of a new world order yet again. Plenty going on. The James Foley assassination video was proven to be forensics experts are saying that he was not killed. When they say he was killed, the Syrian government said he was actually killed a year ago. So yeah, there's a lot going on actually.
So is there anything on the personal level? Lousy milkshakes, terrible sandwiches?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Walking into any doors?
No. Just living life.
Trying to miss the raindrops.
That's right.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess I'll start the show by a post.
Oh, what, we weren't on?
I'll start the show here with a post that I posted last night. I said that the earth was overshadowed by gloom and dark despair through misapprehension of God. Satanic deceptive power had to be broken and must be done by love and not force, for only love can awaken love. The plan of redemption was not an afterthought. It was kept in silence from the foundation of God's throne. From the beginning, God and Christ knew of Satan's apostasy. They did not ordain sin to exist, but foresaw its existence, and most important, made provision to meet its emergency. That's good for us all. And then I was listening to a kind of an interesting, I wasn't quite sure what to think of it when I first watched it last night. Mm-hmm. I believe it was last night that I saw it. But there was a professor from Indiana University, Michael McGurr, I believe, and he was holding a class on C-SPAN on the culture of music, and he was pointing out three prominent feminists who were complaining that 60s and 70s music was by privileged white males. It was sexist and misogynist. And they called it I won't say the name on air, but I'll let you use your imagination. It would be another name for rooster rock.
So I guess they never heard of Janis Joplin, huh?
Yeah, well, they did bring that up.
They
did bring that up later of some of the women's contributions to music, but they said it was mostly a male-dominated endeavor. Damn, yous feminazis have discovered the wheel. Nobody knew that guys learned to play a guitar to get in your pants. You see, women's biggest complaint of men is they don't share their feelings and emotions well. Well, guys figured out how to do that in word and tune, and it was called rock ballads. And it does work. Ask any band about the wet panties and motel keys that get thrown at them on stage. And guess what, feminazis? And guess what, feminazis? Guys don't hide this. They are very open about their intent. Even the ugliest of bandmates are swamped in
Right.
female groupies.
That's why ugly people learn how to play instruments anyway, is so they can get laid. I mean, that's a fact of life.
Mick Jagger,
Right.
classic example.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's so what?
And,
it's up to you to raise your daughters in a manner so that they don't fall for that.
and again, that
It's
darn
up to you to be a strong enough woman to say, okay, I'm not going to fall for some dude with dreamy eyes and a guitar. You know, if you're that stupid, then you're that stupid.
Well, I don't know. There was a lot of gals that fell for old Bon Jovi.
Sure.
But anyway, again, that darn Bible thing. A good woman is more precious than fine gold, and a godly man is hard to find. When you seek the temporal, that's what you'll find. But the lesbo Nazis are pissed off about it. They don't like their position on the hierarchy scale. They were placed in submission to this skirt-chasing cads, and then cursed that their affections would be to them. Well, there's a price for sin and rebellion, and the price was inequity. But lesbian feminists are out to change that. They hate men, they hate God, they hate marriage, and they hate the children, the result of those unions. Man without God seeks the lowest common denominator, pleasure and gratification. So if you got the hots for the musician, you get what you pay for.
Well, here's the thing about that rooster style of rock. You don't see the female version of Jimi Hendrix. You don't see the female version of Van Halen because they can't do it. Because rooster rock, it doesn't come from just your skill. It doesn't come from your fingertips or even your heart or soul. It comes from the depths of your rooster. And that just gets channeled up through your body, through your emotions, into that guitar. So women inherently, without the equipment, cannot play that style of music. And that's why there was disco. I mean,
well, they did bring that up, amazingly enough. They were talking about the many more women in disco and many more strong women in country music.
Yeah.
But males have often been accused that, of course, the guitar has been related to a phallus symbol, and that they've been called guitar gods. And what these feminists were making the argument is that the plight of the women didn't get any better. The liberation didn't, in essence, get any better for women in the so-called, and she specifically pointed out the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Bob Dylan, of all people, that these were supposed to be...
They're putting Bob Dylan in that classification because he is the antithesis of rooster rock.
But... these were men who were supposed to liberate women's sexuality and kind of a Woodstock, free love, free whatever. And they brought up the point that when they show Woodstock, it was a band, it was a festival for men, and women were kind of tag-alongs. And whenever they showed the women, it was a bare breast and a child in arm. So that Woodstock was not necessarily for women. It was a festival for men. And you wrote and posted, well, everyone knows that Rooster Rock was rock of the late 70s and early 80s.
Yeah, I was just playing because they said it was the 60s.
Kiss, Van Halen, Motley Crue, AC/DC, when music was awesome. And then I posted back, the hair bands.
Yeah. Well,
they taught us how to love.
They taught us how to love. They taught us how to love. They taught us how to have a great perm.
Yes.
Yeah. So, men did get in touch with their feminine sides at that point because, they were all curling their hair and everything.
Yes. Well, and a lot of them, like Cinderella, was wearing a lot of makeup.
What do you want? What do you want? I don't know what these women want.
They're not happy, whatever you do.
Exactly. Well, that's the inherent problem with the feminist movement. They're just not happy, no matter what they do.
They're very unhappy people, and they like to let you know they're very unhappy.
Right, and that does get back to God's role for man and woman. I mean, it's designed to be that men and women work hand in hand together. They're not equal. That doesn't mean one is superior to the other. They're partners.
Well, as I said, when you seek out the temporal and the shallow, that's what you're going to get.
Right. And so they're not happy because they're not seeking out their correct role.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not to say that women have to be wives and mothers and everything. Some women are destined to do other things, but when you're not seeking out what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to be unhappy no matter what. And the liberation that you think you're going to have by throwing off what you think are societal shackles.
The shackles of male dominance.
Right. You're just going to get yourself more and more deep into unhappiness and into real bondage.
Hillary Clinton attended Wellesley College, a college for all women, and supposedly what I've read in her biographies, autobiographies or whatever, is that she was never so much fascinated with lesbian sexual relations, but she was intrigued by the idea of throwing off the shackles of male dominance.
Bull. She liked the chicks. I mean, come on.
Okay.
I mean, what kind of warped mindset is that? Obviously, she's engaged in lesbian stuff, Hillary. I mean, that's common knowledge.
Well, that's what Chelsea says.
Yeah, I mean, if you're attracted to women, okay. I don't care. If you're a woman and you're attracted to other women, I don't care. But to do this as some sort of rebellion against male dominance, that's just absurd.
Well, women got this idea that they cannot have total equality and be on a total level with men because child rearing, childbirth is a burden.
Yeah.
And they have to shed themselves of those burdens. Feminists say that consensual sex between married partners is nothing more than marital rape, that marriage constitutes slavery for women. Mm-hmm. And so there's a whole agenda and a mindset that they don't like their place on the hierarchy. Had sin never come into being, Eve was taken from the rib of Adam to signify walking together, walking equal. Now, Eve was not to stand over Adam, nor was she to be trampled under by his feet. They were to walk side by side, and they would have been equal.
That's why Eve was 5'2".
Equal partners.
Right. It's interesting. California just proposed legislation about, let me pull this up here. They had proposed legislation about on college campuses trying to curtail sexual assaults on college campuses.
Sure, and we had one in Iowa as soon as the school season's opened up, apparently.
Yeah, but they're trying to put all these guidelines and everything as, what constitutes consensual sex? It's almost like you have to get a contract now if you're going to be having, if two people are going to be having sex. Where is this? Here we go. This was just on today. I emailed this to myself. Okay, lawmakers okay bill setting standards for campus sexual assault policies. So they're talking about to address the problem of rape on campuses, California colleges and universities would have to adopt a standard of unambiguous consent among students engaging in sexual activity under a proposal passed by state lawmakers Thursday. So what are they going to have to do? Like go down like anytime two people, and I'm not condoning this, but anytime, two people are about to get it on, they have to go down a checklist do you say yes? Do you say yes? Let's do a handshake. Sign right here.
Well, apparently Kobe Bryant almost got caught in that particular dilemma because I think he had a groupie who wanted to get a paternity suit with him. And she agreed to a consensual relationship until he flipped her over and went through another door, let's just say. And she didn't like that because I think she was trying to, like I say, get a paternity suit going, and that wasn't going to happen in the other area. So
and I'm not deeply familiar with the Kobe Bryant thing from years and years ago, but I don't know. This just seems like an attempt to vilify heterosexual relations.
Oh yes,
and that's There's that push not just on campuses but all across the USA to kind of glamorize homosexuality and then demonize the idea that,
as I said, Iowa University had a sexual assault case as soon as the school year started here just recently.
And that's not to poo-poo any sexual assault whatsoever. But
and this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host Frank Holzhauser and co-host David Kaniuk, and we will return after the break.
This is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help!
Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray, we're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
See them here, see them there. You got bad credit, we don't care.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com. Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, avoiding the raindrops this week, trying to find a parking spot.
To ruin my hair.
And I noticed that I just posted this. I caught it on my Facebook. Didn't really comment on it. But Joan Rivers in critical condition. Caught something on Facebook, said an Obama hit or another attempted Hollywood Illuminati sacrifice.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You never know. Obama might have wanted her out of the picture after talking about him being gay and Michelle being a tranny. So I'm not going to discount that. There's no evidence to suggest that that's what's going on, but... You know, when someone says something like that, a national figure, and it gets top billing on the Drudge Report, you know, it's going to make somebody wonder.
Well, supposedly she was all scheduled to go on tour and had some polyps that she was going to have removed from her vocal cords, and supposedly it was supposed to be a relatively simple procedure. And now she's in a medically induced coma.
Well, when you've had plastic surgery as many times as Joan Rivers has, she's basically held together by makeup, Botox, and duct tape.
Well, you would say she's been under anesthesia a number of times in her life. Is this what you're implying?
Exactly. But I don't know. You never know. You never know. You can't discount anything when you have a lawless criminal junta that's hijacked the country.
Well, now there is a couple of things that they are saying for sure that Obama is going to pull the trigger on some sort of immigration bill, and they're talking about some honor system
The honor system, yeah. They get a notice to appear, and then they're supposed to appear within, 5 months or whatever before a judge for an immigration hearing.
No, this pertains to some global warming thing that he may be signing, trying to put other people on the honor system, like China and Russia, to sign up to this. And
right, he's going to try and do an end run around Congress for a global warming treaty, which is ridiculous considering all the models for global warming have been proven to be inaccurate and outright lies.
But it would all be on the honor system.
Yeah, well, they can't quite enforce it yet. They need to have global governments, out fully in the open before they can actually enforce it. Let's see here. I'm going to just paraphrase the article from the New York Times. The Obama administration is working to forge a sweeping international climate change agreement to compel nations to cut their planet-warming fossil fuel emissions, but without ratification from Congress. Treaties have to be approved by Congress. So this is, again, yet another unconstitutional move by Obama. It's hard to keep track of all the unconstitutional moves that this guy is making. I mean, seriously, it's like take your pick for what you would arrest him for.
We could write a book on the unconstitutional moves.
In preparation for this agreement to be signed at a United Nations summit meeting in 2015 in Paris, the negotiators are meeting with diplomats from other countries to broker a deal to commit some of the world's largest economies to enact laws to reduce their carbon pollution. But under the Constitution, a president may enter into a legally binding treaty only if it is approved by a 2/3 majority of the Senate. To sidestep that requirement, President Obama's climate negotiators are devising what they call a politically binding deal. So that's the honor system right there. A politically binding deal that would name and shame countries into cutting their emissions. The deal is likely to face strong objections from Republicans on Capitol Hill and from poor countries around the world, but negotiators say it may be the only realistic path. So,
well, have you ever been on a job where you had a honor system snack box?
No.
Well, the few jobs that I've been around that had that type of thing, they always come up short of money. Everybody seems to take a snack, but doesn't always seem to put the money in the box.
That may be what this is designed to do, and then it's designed to fail so that they create a higher crisis so that they can then usher in global carbon tax, which, it's funny. I got one of those political surveys, phone calls just yesterday. It was from some climate action committee or something, basically trying to do research for Bruce Braley. But that was one of the questions that they asked. It was like the first question that they asked was if I would support a tax on carbon emissions.
Was Joni Ernst in the conversation?
Yeah, they asked.
I think I got that same call.
Yeah. So there's been a push for years and years and years for a carbon tax or cap and trade, which is a completely ludicrous idea because we're paying to do the same emissions that we've been doing forever.
Well, there's no cap and trade unless you prove global warming exists.
Right. And their main modus operandi right now is not even to debate whether global warming exists or not. It's in every article that comes out, global warming, which is an established science, and then paint anybody who has an objection as global warming denier.
Yes.
Put them in the same category as Holocaust deniers.
Well, what would we call
like
Ed Fallon? A global warming believer? Believe.
Yeah, exactly. I call him a sucker, really. No, seriously. I mean, he's a well-meaning. He's what the elite would refer to as a useful idiot. He's somebody who's well-intentioned. I have no doubt that Ed Fallon is a well-intentioned guy. He's a genuine guy.
Got good intentions, and he's a rebel without a cause.
Exactly. And that's what I like about Ed Fallon. But he's been duped. He's been duped by this climate change agenda. You notice that they couldn't prove global warming exists, so they have to change it to climate change now.
And weather extremes. But here's the bottom line to the whole thing. Al Gore happens to be cut in on a deal of a software designer who's designing a software to help the corporations flip over to green policies. And of course, you can barter your your pollution credits, so to speak.
Right.
And of course, if you run out of those credits, you're going to have to purchase someone else's. And of course, Al Gore and his cronies are going to be right in the middle
Exactly. They're going to be making all the money off
They're
of
going to be
this
making
thing,
all the
so-
money. And they said it's going to be a $6 trillion boondoggle.
Right. Right. And that's really what it's all about. You notice that every prediction that Al Gore, back in 2008, he was saying in 5 years, the coasts are going to be flooded.
Yeah.
No. In 5 years, there's going to be no Arctic ice left.
Well,
no, Arctic ice is larger than it has been.
Here's an interesting thing I've never told. I've wanted to tell Ed Fallon on a couple of occasions, but do you remember when Chris Matthews was having the nightly, the well that blew up under the Gulf that was spraying oil all over?
Yeah, the BP Gulf oil spill, right.
And they was talking about how the tar balls was floating up on the beaches and whatever. And there was a caller into a radio talk show that said, well, I've lived in San Diego for over 45 years, and there's been tar balls coming up on the beaches of San Diego for 45 years, and there was no BP spill. So it's fossil fuel naturally escapes from the ocean floor anyway.
Right, but that's not what was happening in that case.
No,
I mean, they had a
obviously.
devastating oil spill.
Oh, yes.
It destroyed that
Yes,
region down there. The
I
core
understand
exit that BP was this proven toxic core exit that they were using is damaged sea life and everything. You got shrimp being born with 3 eyes, 2 heads, and everything like that. I mean, I wouldn't eat anything out of the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, it was just a terrible situation.
Yeah. Well, here is kind of I don't know how you feel about it, but it was kind of jaw-dropping to me and many other people in the media. See if I can find this here. And it was I posted, it's no shame to not have a strategy, but it's a shame and a disgrace for the leader of the free world to stand up and tell your friends and enemies you don't have a strategy.
Well, this stinking dictator in office, he has a strategy. The strategy has been to fund ISIS. They created ISIS. We've covered this time and time again. This is an absolute fact. They're now being positioned in Syria as a catalyst for us to invade Syria. The Council on Foreign Relations had the audacity this week to say that we don't need to recognize Syrian sovereignty if we decide to attack ISIS in Syria. They said, since Assad has demonstrated he is unable to govern and keep the peace within Syria, the United States need not violate the regime's legitimacy by acknowledging Assad's threat that any strike which is not coordinated with the government will be considered as aggression. When we're the stinking people who put ISIS in Syria, they were called the Free Syrian Army for years. We tried to get a war started in Syria for years and years and years. These people are fighting as our proxies in Syria. And to go and say that... oh, well, he can't keep the peace, when it's our fault that he can't keep the peace, is just absolutely maddening.
Did you happen to notice that pastel suit he drug out of somewhere?
Oh yeah, I did notice that, the gray suit. Yeah,
that's kind of a tan suit or something. It would, but I know exactly what you're saying, and I know exactly where you're coming from because we've discussed a lot of this off air. But I don't know that I go as far as you. To me, the guy is a dupe. He's a useful idiot, and that's not to say...
Obama?
Yes, Obama. And that's not to say that later on Satan can't take possession of him.
I think he's already there.
And use him for his means. But this guy just looks so out of his depth. He's a useful idiot. He looks out of his depth, and he's... Clintons call him a bumbler and an amateur, and of course the Obamas call the Clintons opportunists.
That might all be for public consumption, though. I don't know. I don't get the sense that he's that much of a bumbler or amateur as they're portraying. I think that's just left-right rhetoric.
Then let me ask you about what I mentioned maybe 2 weeks ago. Ed Klein's book says that most likely... Michelle and what's the gal that lives in the White House?
Valerie Jarrett.
Valerie Jarrett and John Brennan has more to do, and Axelrod has more to do with the foreign policy than Obama. They say Obama makes a decision. He goes up. Michelle gets wind of it. She has a powwow with Valerie Jarrett. They make a decision. Obama comes down. Then he gets to back off.
Yeah, I don't know how deeply involved Michelle is in with that, but I know for a fact Valerie Jarrett is very much involved with that, and she's pretty much, like the Angela Lansbury character from Manchurian Candidate.
They say she actually lives in the White House.
Yes.
And has Secret Service detail.
I agree with that. Every assessment of Valerie Jarrett that I've heard says that she is the one that is basically the president of the United States.
Well, we're going to be coming on a break here pretty quick, so I'm going to start a conversation, and then we'll pick it up after the break. But I would ask you, what's the criteria for the United States being involved in any kind of foreign conflict? What would be your criteria? What do you believe is our national security interests? And we're going to kind of get into Rand Paul's views on isolationism, so-called isolationism.
North Korea is an isolationist country. Romania under Ceausescu was an isolationist country. Saying that you don't want to go to war with every country in the world is suddenly isolationist. That's absolutely absurd.
But we'll pick this conversation up after the break. And this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's gotta be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me. But is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
Enough said.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live. I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk, and Chris is producing for us this week. The charge gets thrown around a lot of times that this one or that one is an isolationist. Pat Buchanan's been called an isolationist. Ron Paul have been called isolationists. I guess I would ask you this. When we go to war, what should be the criteria for any foreign conflict we get involved in?
That criteria would be if another nation is directly threatening to invade the country and prevent us from our God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If there's an incursion into this country, like a foreign invasion by Mexico, that would constitute a right of war. So yeah, anything that would be posing as a danger or as a challenge to our lives, to our properties, to things like that.
Well, would you consider fossil fuel and oil a national security interest?
We have fossil fuel resources in this country that we do not try to tap into. The fossil fuel that we are importing is not in our nation. So we don't have the right to go into another nation to protect a good.
Well, go ahead.
No, that's
Okay.
just it. We don't have to attack another nation.
We
for a
established this a couple of weeks ago, and I think we are both in agreement that under Nixon, the gold standard was abolished, and we've entered upon something called the petrodollar, and that our economy and the strength of our dollar depends on the fluctuating price of the barrel of crude oil.
Right.
And so with that in mind, there's a certain amount of world production of oil, and there's a certain demand, daily, monthly, yearly. We're always at best on a good day, a good year, we're a percentage of barrels short. I can't give you that exact figure off the top of my head, but I could find it with a little research. That we're a few barrels, hundreds of thousands barrels short per day per year. So there's a worldwide demand and a worldwide supply. Any kinks in the armor is going to throw other people in competition with our vendors.
So don't you think it would be more advantageous of us to be friendly with those nations that are supplying us instead of threatening them with war all the time?
Yes, but this brings up the interesting point. We're in bed with the Saudis. They are of Wahhabists. Their faith or whatever is Wahhabists. I don't know what that all means, as opposed to Sunni and Shia and Kurds and whatever.
Well, it's a faction of Islam. It's a relatively small faction of Islam. The Saudi house is not made up of Wahhabists. They're actually very much afraid of Wahhabists taking over the country.
Okay, but now when we put our foot on foreign soil, on so-called Muslim land, and somehow they think we're the infidel because we're over there with our foot on their land, and we're mixed up with people that sometimes maybe we have 5% in common with, 25% in common with, 50% in common with, 75% in common with, but sometimes we're always in a position to have to choose the lesser of two evils. Such was with the case of replacing the guy in Egypt. We end up with something worse. If we replace Assad, we're going to end up with something worse.
You have to understand what that was all about, though. That was all about a destabilization campaign. They want to destabilize the Middle East. They're trying to get us into a third world war.
Well, the Bible tells me, and again I mentioned this in a faith-related lens. The Bible tells me that Christ said himself, there will be wars and rumors of wars, and this has to come and pass until he comes. Wars don't so much bother me. It's, am I doing my job as a Christian to witness and prepare people if they die in a war or a conflict? Are they ready to meet their Savior? So wars don't necessarily scare me as much as worldwide peace, because that's, when they start talking worldwide peace, that's when it's time to get worried, in my opinion.
Well, they're not going to start talking about worldwide peace until after the final cataclysm occurs, which they're following the Albert Pike Third World War model on trying to get this all started.
But
my point is, in addition to witnessing and everything, you should also be out there as a vanguard of truth, as a watchman on the wall. And I would venture to say that part of our job is to try and prevent these wars, because if you have a war, then you're going to have needless shedding of blood.
I find, more than the vast military-industrial complex or the Illuminati or whatever different groups that some people want to point to, I tend to believe that the Catholic Church is behind. There's two reasons we usually go to war in this world. Usually the Catholic Church is behind it, such as, I think if you'll investigate Vietnam, they was behind the Vietnam conflict. And we usually go to war for oil. And we don't express that. So we have to use other excuses that we're going to liberate this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to give women the right to vote. We're going to... there's no, in my opinion, and call it humble or inhumble, whatever you want to refer to it as, but I feel like there's no shame in blood for oil. We need it as a national security interest. Yes, we have our own, but there's a worldwide demand, a worldwide supply. China has basically said that they'll fight for it. If we're not producing our own, which we could open up the Alaska reserves. We can do research offshore. There's all kinds of avenues we can frack. There's all kinds, and of course the environmental lobbies against all of this. Mm-hmm. So we're over making friends with people who are less than desirable people, and we end up getting in bed with certain undesirables, and. I guess that I would say,
when we could have just continued drilling for oil and mining those resources ourselves, which would have boosted the economy, but that wasn't part of the globalist plan.
But I think part of what was going on in the northern tip of Africa and Gaddafi is we was not wanting certain elements to get in control of those oil wellheads,
and now they have it.
And we wanted the free flow of oil out of the northern tip of Africa through the Mediterranean.
Absolutely not what it was about. It was about Gaddafi was building up northern Africa. They were becoming strong. They were becoming independent. We didn't want that. We took them out. We also wanted to establish a centralized bank, because as soon as the new government took over, that's the very first move that they made, was to establish a centralized bank. You notice all of the different countries that we're going up against right now, they are all the last countries that do not have a centralized bank that's tied to a Rothschild bank. That's what it's all about. Because once you got them all in there, then you can bring everybody into that one world globalist system.
But if you're going to have a monetary system...
Oil is just a cover.
Yes, but if you're going to have a monetary system that's not backed by gold, and you're going to back it with petroleum...
And that's the
then
folly.
Don't you have to have a production and a ample production of oil to back the money?
And that's the betrayal of Richard Nixon and the Luciferian Henry Kissinger. That's the big betrayal. We should not be on a petrodollar. We should be on a gold standard.
Yes, I understand that, but again, what I always say to Ed Fallon, do you deal with the world as it is, or do you deal with the world as you want it to be? We're never going to be back on the gold standard. I don't know that if I seriously wonder if all the money that's been printed, there would be enough gold to back the paper currency anyway. There's like $60 trillion in circulation in the whole world.
Right.
Is there $60 trillion worth of gold?
And I'm not sure what that answer is. I mean, I don't have that figure.
So my point being, if we're going to fall away from the gold standard, and I'm not saying that was the right thing to do, but you can't have 7 billion people on the planet and have $100 to go around.
Well, what they're going to do is they're going to create new currency that's based off of a basket of different resources. So country A has resources in gold and silver, so that's what their currency is going to be backed up by. And then the next one's going to be oil, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be like an SDR-based currency there. And then I don't know if that'll get replaced down the road.
Well, my idea as far as the Kurdistans, obviously the Kurdish region of Iraq is rich in oil, probably the most richest oil reserves in the area. Was we protecting the Christians over there, or was we protecting the oil fields?
I think there were a few bases, actually, that we were more interested in protecting than Christians or oil fields, actually.
But I don't know. I guess I would ask you, being that we do fight, if oil was water, certainly we would fight for water rights. If somebody tried to dam up the water, and it's been all through the history of the world that when somebody upstream tries to dam up the water, this starts range wars.
It starts range wars. There are different schools of thought on oil. There are those who say that it's a finite resource, and that we've hit peak oil production. Michael Rupert, God rest his soul, before he committed suicide, he wrote a great book back in 2004, 2005 called Crossing the Rubicon. And his whole theory, it was one of the most well-researched books I've ever read. His whole theories of 9/11 and everything was that it was all about peak oil production. Then there are those other theories out there that say, well, no, it's actually, it is a renewable resource. So I'm not sure which one is the correct thing. But here's the thing. There are so many other different means of energy that have been developed that are being suppressed because of our reliance on the petrodollar.
Well, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk, and we will return after the break.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from my Sumito credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere. See 'em here, see 'em there. You got bad credit? We don't care. Metro Ford's on everywhere. Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com for your guaranteed credit approval. Good credit, bad credit, no credit. Everybody drives with guaranteed credit approval at emetroford.com.
Metro Ford's on everywhere.
Visit emetroford.com today.
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
And we're back with Frankly Speaking Live, and I'm your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kanyuk. We'll move on to another topic here, but I don't know. Do you think isolationism is a fair tag for Rand Paul?
Absolutely not. Anybody who calls Rand Paul an isolationist or Ron Paul or Pat Buchanan an isolationist doesn't know the meaning of the term. And they're calling them just, it's kind of like a buzzword now to tag them as something so stupid people can go and say, oh, well, I really like him on economic policy and things like that in the Constitution, but he's an isolationist because I heard that on Fox News.
Well, do they promote...
is cutting your country off from all contact with the outside world.
It's
what North Korea does. It's what Romania under Ceausescu did. It's like those tribes in Brazil that have never seen... never seen an airplane or anything like that. That's what isolationism is. What constitutionalists advocate is that they don't want to have wars unless it's a real war that's needed. They want to stay out of other people's affairs. They want to have dialogue and trading with all nations, be friends with them, but not sit around in their backyards and try and start fights.
Let me ask this: would they continue to support our free trade agreements? And if not, how do we force people without some coercion
Would
to
you
adhere?
Continue to support our free trade agreements? Do you think NAFTA has worked out? Do you think GATT has worked out?
Well, I'm not. Obviously, it's not. It's not working out when we're getting the shaft from the people who are in the agreement with us.
That's what the whole thing is, though. So no, I don't think that they would continue to support NAFTA.
The concept of free trade is a good thing.
Right, the concept of free trade is a good thing.
But inevitably, we're not having free trade with people like China because they're devaluing their.
So they're not really free trade agreements. That's the whole point of those agreements. They're agreements that are made to deindustrialize the United States.
So if you're Rand
bring
Paul,
us down, to weaken the United States, so you can build these other countries up.
If you're Rand Paul, would you back out of these free trade agreements, or would you use some force to?
I can't speak for what Rand Paul would do. If I were president, I would back out of these agreements. I would favor nation status for trading with China.
Well, let me ask you a question.
I would put a tax
example.
on any company that has moved their manufacturing out of the U.S. I would put a tariff on them as imported goods.
China is making a lot of noise and rattling a lot of sabers because they would like to have control of the total Asian islands. They'd like to have control of Japan, and we have encouraged people like Japan to not go nuclear, or different people to not go nuclear and build nuclear bombs because we don't want to have a nuclear bombs race. So we've offered an umbrella of protection that started with the UN and after World War II, that we're going to protect certain people under our umbrella. If China starts rattling the sabers too much, what do? How do we get them to stand down or back off from, say, trying to go after Korea, trying to go after Japan, trying to going after some of these places that they have their eye on and think that they're entitled to?
Yeah, and I'm not sure what that answer is. If the American public decides that they want to go to war to defend those nations, if they tell their Congress, their representatives, that it's worth going over there and dying for, and those representatives vote and give the President of the United States the authorization to go to war for those nations, as they are constitutionally required to do, then by all means, we will go to war.
Well,
but it can't be done as just a presidential action.
Well, there was people that thought that we could contain Hitler. I think Neville Chamberlain, Winston Churchill drug FDR kicking and screaming and fighting all the way into World War II because FDR did not want another World War conflict after World War I. And Churchill was just adamant. And finally, Pearl Harbor, I guess, is what encouraged FDR to kind of join in and join the fight.
No, we had another nation attack us. Congress passed a resolution. They gave the president the authorization to declare war on Japan. Japan had already declared war on us. And Germany declared war on us that same day.
So Rand Paul would have no problem going to war if he gets the approval and the thumbs up from Congress, and they vote on it.
Absolutely. If it threatens Americans' ability to trade with a free nation, if it threatens our ability to operate freely as a nation, then yes, it is something worth going to war for.
So do you have any topics you want to hit? We got about 5-6 minutes before the end of the show, and I know you're always loaded with a folder full of stuff.
Always. One thing that was interesting for me this week, Rick Wiles, I'm sure some people know who Rick Wiles is. He's the host of True News. It's a prophetic news program that's been going on. But Rick Wiles announced this week that he's going to stop broadcasting the True News radio program. I think that's a major prophetic, not prophecy written in the Bible, but that's a major warning sign, I think, of where we are in the country. He cited Isaiah 26:20-21. Come, my people, enter your chambers and shut your doors behind you. Hide yourself as it were for a little moment until the indignation is past. For behold, the Lord comes out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. The earth will also disclose her blood and will no more cover her slain. He said that the American public has checked out of reality and is living in an alternate state of reality. Rick also said that the remnant church doesn't need more news and information. He said they need to be nourished by eating the body and blood of Jesus and the Word of God. Rick said he is not going off the air, but merely putting True News on the shelf for a season. Rick promised to broadcast a new type of radio program that is totally focused on Jesus. As a watchman, he said that the Lord is telling him to come off the wall and go inside the storm shelter. The storm is here. I think that should be a major warning flag for anybody who is paying attention out there. There was also a story, a guest on his show openly mocked by his audience at a small prophecy conference. This prophet said America would be invaded by the Russians. And I just wanted to read this story. I was listening to Rick Wiles on a show today from your site. He mentioned his first vision when he was in the presence of God and felt fear and nakedness. I admit that itself brought me to tears because it is fearful and humbling to be before God because of his holiness. He suffers because of his love for us, and he suffers because of our sins. It hurts God when one contemplates the holiness. It hurts God, and when one contemplates the holiness of the magnitude of God, it's overwhelming. Mr. Wiles played a recording of a prophet who had appeared on his show in August from India, who talked recently at a prophecy conference in America about God. He talked about his appearance on True News. When asked a question on Rick Wiles' show, and Angel gave his, this is very poorly written, I apologize. Let's see, it gave this prophet something to read of God's word on the subject. The question Rick Wiles asked was, what is God telling him about America? This prophet said that America would be invaded by the Russians, and the Christian audience laughed at him. The Indian prophet asked them why they were laughing. He said if he, the prophet, were American, he would be shaking in his shoes. They continued to laugh loudly. This person said on Rick's show he is not a pre-trib rapture person. He believes we will go through the tribulation. He acknowledges the horror which is going to happen. The people at the conference continue to laugh. So I guess my point is if we're not willing to listen to what people are trying to warn us, what hope do we really have?
You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
Well, this has been Frankly Speaking Live with your host, Frank Holzhauser, and my co-host, David Kaniuk. And we will return next week at this same time, and we'll pick up on these folder full of goodies that he has.